Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Sarda. Welcome back to another video. Now, today we're going to be talking about days 1 and 2 of free agency. They've flown by. I know during this quarantine, that's basically the only thing I've been following. So excited to finally make a video about it. I know I didn't do. I said I was going to probably do something before free agency started. I never did, so I apologize for that. But now we get to talk about what we've gone through the first 2 days of free agency. And they've been pretty big for us. So before I get into it, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Stone Cold Kittle. I'm getting more active now, especially during the free agency period. I was deactivated for a while, but now I'm back on there. So make sure to follow me there. I post a lot of Niner stuff, a lot of other sports stuff going on. And if you have any questions about anything, whether it's free agency, whether it's about the team, let me know in the chat if you're watching live or the comments below if you're not. Anyways, let's just get right into it. So let's start with the Niners. Obviously, this video is going to be basically surrounded about the Niners. I'll talk about everything else that's been going on that also impacts us. But let's start off with who we lost. I think not who we re-signed. So because I feel like let's start with DeForest Buckner because I made a video of this yesterday. I'm not going to go too much into it. But I think his loss is going to mean a lot for the rest of free agency. There's going to be some key guys that we either have already signed or now we have to sign because we lost him. It's you can't just have one player fill. It's going to have to be a rotation thing. That's what Shanahan said. That's what they said. So that's one huge loss. I'm not going to talk about that too much because I already talked about it in the last video. Make sure to check that out as well. The only other player we lost so far is Levine Toilolo. Obviously, he was the third string tight end. He is signed with the Giants. And I think this might impact us a little bit because right now we only have 2 tight ends, Kittle and Dwelley. So I think this probably means that we're 5th, 6th, 7th. I really do not care, but we're definitely gonna have to take a tight end there. I think preferably for us, someone who can mainly block more because that's what Toilolo kind of did. He was really good on special teams, more of a blocker than a pass catcher. He could sometimes play fullback if I think there were a few games where Juszczyk was hurt last year. So I think he can easily fill in for that spot. We need someone who can take his place. All right, let's talk about who we signed. This is obviously the biggest part. And in my opinion, we've done a fantastic job of signing everyone. So we've signed. Let's before I get into the exact players, let's just put this out. We've kept 10 out of our 11 defensive starters from last year, which, if you ask me, is a huge W. I don't care that we lost Buckner. It's still a W, whether or not you lose probably your best defensive player on the team. So anyway, so let's just go one by one for each player that we have signed, we have tendered, or we have done something with them. So let's start with the most important one, Arik Armstead. Obviously, he signed, I think, 5 years, $85 million, which is about $17 million a year on average. Yeah, so I think that's I think definitely keeping him was a huge acquisition, or not an acquisition, just like we needed to keep him in general, considering we lost Buckner. And I think it was the right move to keep him because now we have him on a cheaper contract than we would have had to get for Buckner. And trading Buckner cuts out so much cap for us, which is really good. And we weren't going to be at that whether or not we signed Armstead or not. So I think obviously he played a pivotal role for our team last year. And I'm really glad we got him back because I think we definitely needed him. And it's going to be a really good move for the future. Dom says for the draft, we should draft another defensive lineman to fill Buckner's position. It's going to have to be late round if that's the case. I kind of just got into it. I know you just tuned in probably, but I got into it when I was talking about how he left the team. And we're probably just going to sign some guys to get into the rotational players. I'm going to get into that a bit more of who we should be signing. Next up, Jimmy Ward. This is another huge signing for us, I should say. We definitely needed a safety or to keep him or sign another safety, and we did just that. So that's and we signed him on a pretty good deal too. I think it's like 3 years, $28.5 million. To put that into perspective, we signed Sherman 3 years, $39 million, coming off a torn Achilles. So we definitely got a really good deal for him. So I'm really glad to have him back. I know he's going to keep balling out for us. Next player. This is one of the key players that I said we need to sign once Buckner left. That's Ronald Blair. He signed a 1-year deal. He's coming off an ACL injury. So I think a 1-year deal made a lot of sense. He might not be at 100% ever again, if we're being completely honest. So I think a 1-year deal is pretty good for him. He's been balling out for us, honestly. I'm really glad we kept him. He's going to help the rotation with the loss of Buckner. He can really play end or tackle if he wants. So it's definitely a huge keep for us, and I'm really glad to have him back. Next two guys I'm going to talk about together, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Breida. They both got the second-round tender. So basically, if you know what that is, basically they have, I believe they're paying them like 3-point-something mil a year. It's a 1-year deal, and any team can match that off. Any team can pay more for him. They're still open. Technically, they're still free agents, and teams can pay for him, and the Niners have to match that offer if they want to keep those players. So I think KB's staying. I think he's been working so hard this offseason. Make sure you're following him on Instagram. He's been putting in so much work. As for Breida, it kind of confused me. I'm going to get into a bit why later, but it kind of confused me that we signed him because I felt like, I'm just going to get into that a bit later with my next player. That's Jerick McKinnon. We restructured his contract, and so I was a bit surprised that we kept him rather than Breida. I thought we were going to for sure keep Breida and trade him maybe. But instead, we're going to keep McKinnon, and I guess we're re-signing Breida or something. So, bit of a surprise. I bet we're going to have to trade one of our running backs because we already gave Wilson an extension. We have Coleman locked up. We have Mostert locked up, and then we have McKinnon and Breida. So that's 5 running backs. I think you really only want, considering that Mostert's been doing a lot of special teams. But again, he's been balling out recently, so. We'll see what happens. But I think 3 or 4 running backs at the most is what you want to keep. So we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Breida on a different team before the season ended because he's been pretty valuable for us during his tenure here. Except last year, he struggled with handling the ball. So we'll see. I bet another team might want to match it. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, Breida's on that tender. McKinnon has a contract restructure, which is really good for us. We save cap. He's going to be a huge question mark next year. He hasn't played a game in 2 years after 2 ACL tears, or 1 ACL tear, and then the recovery didn't go so well. I don't know how it was, but Jerick McKinnon is going to stay a Niner, restructured contract. And then the last player we re-signed, I think this is a sleeper signing in my opinion. Sean Coleman missed all of last season. He's back on a 1-year deal. I think he's definitely one of our swing tackles that we've had. We had Brunskill, obviously. We had Ben Garland can also play guard as well. I'm going to get into him more. But Sean Coleman's definitely a good player to keep on the team. So, I'm glad to have him back. He's going to be good for depth. We're probably still going to take a guard in the draft, probably maybe 5th round, or we're probably going to trade 31 back. So we'll see what happens then. I'll get into that a bit more later on. Anyways, let's talk about who we haven't signed. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players that were on our team last year that we didn't sign. So let's start off with the big one, Emmanuel Sanders. At the beginning of the offseason, I would say we have to sign him. Now that we have the 13th pick, we don't have to sign him. It's just going to be – we're just going to waste salary cap. Just give him a contract we don't really need to give. We already have a pretty solid receiving core, and we're about to add a first-round talent to that. So I don't think we really need to re-sign him. Obviously, he balled out here. I think he's definitely going to ball out somewhere else. So I think his days with the Niners, his short career with the Niners is over. So we'll see where he goes. Next guy is Jason Verrett. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit. First of all, obviously, he's not re-signing. He is god-awful. But anyways, it might be a good idea to sign another cornerback for a cheap deal, just like we did with the Verrett tactic. Sign someone for cheap, and so they can challenge Witherspoon and Mosley, challenge them for that spot. Because we know Witherspoon has a lot of work to do. Mosley played pretty well, but it's kind of hard to say he's a starting caliber cornerback yet. But we'll see what happens with them. I think bringing another starting caliber cornerback to challenge them for the spot is going to be a really smart idea. Question is who? There's not that many I can think of at this moment. I mean, if for some reason Xavier Rhodes doesn't get signed by anyone or someone like that, that's one guy you can bring in. Except he would probably get the starting spot, which I don't think we necessarily need. I think we need someone to challenge him, challenge those two guys for the spot. So we'll see what happens there. And we have to get them on a cheap deal. I'm not paying more than $4 million maybe for them because we need to save cap. I think we have about like 20 something mil right now. I haven't checked the numbers after all the stuff that went down today. I checked yesterday. It was like 23 mil or something. But we'll see what happens. Next guy on there is Ben Garland. I do think we should sign him. Obviously, Richburg had some injuries in the past. Right guard has been a huge question. He can play right guard. Again, Brunskill can also play right guard. Again, we're probably also going to draft a guard. But I do think for tackle depth, it's totally worth signing him. We can easily get him for a cheap deal. But I mean, again, if another team overpays for him for some reason, I think we can just let him walk and we'll get someone else, another interior lineman. Next guy, Demontre Moore. We signed him mid-season. He balled out preseason. We signed him mid-season. He started balling out. Then he tore his ACL. I think he's a guy that I would like to have, but we only can really have him if he's on a cheap deal, if you get what I'm saying, because I do not want to overpay for some guy that's not going to get that many minutes on the field. So we'll see what happens with that, but I don't think we're going to need him. Next up, these two guys I'm just going to go – actually, these three guys I'm just going to say right now. Jordan Matthews, Dante Johnson, Anthony Zettel, we do not need. They didn't really play factors for us at all last year. Now, I think we have to sign him. He's started a little bit throughout the season. Defensive tackle, which we need because of Buckner's loss. So I definitely think we're going to need to re-sign Sheldon Day. He hasn't played too much of a role for us in the recent years, so I think we can easily get him cheap. Worst case scenario, we'll sign someone else, another defensive tackle. I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's kind of hard to think of the defensive tackles who are available that we can get for a cheap deal. But Sheldon Day, if we want to keep that chemistry, it seems like we've really been focused on re-signing our guys rather than focusing on other guys. So I think Sheldon Day makes sense for us to re-sign. So I think that's a good idea. Last guy is Elijah Lee. He's the third out of the one out of the three restricted free agents. Other two are Bourne and Breida, who we second round tendered. We didn't tender Elijah Lee, so he's good for depth, I will say. It might be good to add someone. It might be good to draft someone who's like a good run stopper at that linebacker position. Whether I'm probably going to be another late round pick because we don't really need them starting at this point. But Elijah Lee, he's a guy that is obviously nice to have, but we don't necessarily need him. So those are all the players that are free right now that we have not signed. I might make another video if we sign those guys or if we don't sign those guys, but it would be a lot shorter than this right now. All right, next steps for us this offseason. We've already traded Buckner. We need to trade Goodwin. That has to get done this offseason. I mean, he's taking up a lot of cap right now. We can get rid of that cap. He honestly hasn't really been playing a role for this team recently. We're going to get – next year our receiving core is going to be Debo, our first-round pick, 13th overall pick probably, Jalen Hurd, Kendrick Bourne, Trent Taylor. That's 5 guys right there. And then probably Dante Pettis or something like that. Yeah, we do not really need Marquise Goodwin on this team. I don't think he really has been fitting in. I think we can definitely get a lot of value. I think we can definitely get some value for him, maybe like a 6th round, 7th round pick or something like that. Obviously, he's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. Teams are going to love that about him. And he's good. He can be good on every given day. I mean, he was our number 1 receiver prior 2 years before Sanders and Debo took over. So I definitely think teams are going to want him. Mainly teams that either need receiver depth or just have horrible receivers and you need someone to step up. So I think Marquise Goodwin will be traded, and he will not play another game in a Niners uniform. So those are the guys that. So we've gone through the guys who left. We've gone through the guys who we've signed. We've gone through the players who are free. We've gone through the players that we should move on from and trade. There's probably some more guys that we should trade. I haven't really necessarily looked at salaries, but the two guys that really stood out was McKinnon and Goodwin. Obviously, we restructured McKinnon's contract, so I think I'm okay with that. And then Goodwin, I think we just got to get rid of him, honestly. Or we just got to restructure his contract to something cheap. I don't think he's going to want that. So we'll see what happens. All right, so now let's just talk about what's been going on in the NFC West, because this is obviously there's been a lot going down. So let's start with the big one. The Cardinals are going to be – that's why I'm thinking like maybe bring in that Jason Verrett guy, use that tactic next year. Obviously, we re-signed Jimmy Ward to help that out, everything. So sorry, I thought I heard something. Yeah, so we're definitely going to have to improve the secondary. We'll also probably draft someone we'll probably draft someone. I'm going to get into the draft in a bit. Sorry, there was a fly just flying around. So, yeah, we definitely got – they have a solid receiving core. I mean, if you know what I mean, like Hopkins, Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, along with Kyler Murray and Kenyon Drake. Plus, their defense got better. They added Jordan Phillips. It's Jordan Phillips, not Lauren. Yeah, Jordan Phillips. They had Jordan Phillips from the Bills. Still got Chandler Jones, Budda Baker, Patrick Peterson. And they still have the 8th overall pick, mind you that. So it's probably going to be O-line from what I'm hearing, because their O-line has been not so good. And if they have a pretty good offense, so they're going to need to work on that O-line. So that's what I'm assuming they're going to – Simmons, if for somehow he falls to them, I doubt he will. Right now I have him going 3rd to the Lions. I'll post a mock draft video sometime soon once I complete it. But I have him going 3rd to the Lions. And I think the Cardinals are for sure going to take an offensive tackle. So Cardinals are going to be pretty good next year. And then let's move on to the Rams. So they have not done much signing-wise, in my opinion. And they lost Nickel Roby-Coleman. They lost Corey Littleton. Those are two pretty good players on their team who've played some roles. Obviously, the Rams are kind of in cap hell right now. Their future is not looking good. I honestly think they're going to finish at this point. I think they might finish last in the NFC West, which is kind of crazy to think right now, considering they made the Super Bowl a few years ago. I don't think the Rams have been doing much. The Seahawks also they've improved on offense. I will say they added Greg Olsen. They lost George Fant, who was their left tackle. I don't know if he necessarily. I forget if he started. If he was the starting left tackle at the beginning of the year, because I think he might have replaced someone. I'm forgetting, but anyways, I feel like the Seahawks, they've kind of been up and down. They've lost some defensive guys. I know they lost Quentin Jefferson. I'm not 100% sure if he started, but it seems like the Seahawks are going to contend with us next year. And then Clowney could be out too. So we'll see what happens then. But I think you gotta say that the NFC West is probably one of the best division, if not the best. Actually, scratch that. The NFC West is the best division in football coming into next year. So it's gonna be a bloodbath in that division. I think right now we're making the right moves to help out to get better every day. Obviously, the Buckner one's going to hurt a bit, but our offense is going to significantly improve. Plus, our D-line is still the best D-line in the league without Buckner, in my opinion. I know DJ Jones is going to eat next year. So we'll see what happens then. But I think it's going to be a bloodbath next year. So I am looking forward to that. Last thing I want to address is the draft. So right now, 13th overall pick, 31st overall pick. I'm just going to talk about these two picks right now because I don't really want to get into the late round picks. I'll probably go into those later. But right now, 13th overall pick, it's going to be best receiver available. That's going to be either Ruggs, Judy, or CeeDee Lamb. I'm hoping in the order I want it, it's CeeDee Lamb, Judy, Ruggs. But it's going to be best receiver available. That's going to be that pick. And if for some reason all three are off the board, I doubt that happens considering that I don't see. I only see like one or two receivers going ahead of us to the Raiders and the Jets, unless some like team trades up or something like that. But yeah, if we don't get one of those three receivers, we'd probably trade that pick back, take either like Laviska Shenault or T. Higgins. But those three receivers are the receivers I'm eyeing for the draft and that I want on this team next year. And that pick has to be a receiver. If Sanders is gone, that pick has to be a receiver. There's no question in my mind. If that pick is not receiver, I will be shocked. I don't. What else would it be? Like tackle doesn't make sense because whoever's gonna do that would be wouldn't start. Defensive tackle, maybe if Derek Brown somehow fell to us and we took him, I would be okay with that. It's not the best fit, but still would help improve the D-line a lot. I know we've been really just building that up throughout the years. That's why we're such a good team. We built from the D-line, and now we're there. We're at the Super Bowl caliber team. But yeah, so wide receiver first pick. Now let's talk about 31. This pick is going to be traded down. At this point, I can guarantee you that this pick is going to be traded down. We don't have any picks rounds 2 through 4. So I think it's totally worth trading this pick down, getting secondary help, interior line help, heck, maybe even the tackle. I bet we'll probably draft another safety. We'll draft a cornerback in this upcoming draft, probably somewhere between rounds 2 and 4, because I know we're going to trade back. We're probably going to trade back multiple times. We'll trade 31 back, maybe get like a second or something. Second and third or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We're gonna have I think by the end of it, we'll have multiple picks rounds 2 through 4, and that's because we're gonna trade back pick 31. So though we don't trade back pick 31 is if someone is available that has fell so much that we have to take them. Like it's a can't miss prospect. So we'll see what happens there. I bet we're probably gonna trade down because I don't think there's that many can't miss prospects that are gonna fall to 31. So we'll see what happens with everything. That's going to do it. So I just want to talk about everything free agency. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments or want to say anything. Leave them in the comments below. And thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Go Niners.